Welcome to Be the Messenger, Your Message Matter podcast show. We would love to welcome Uncle Dave, who is a speaker. He was featured on TedX, and he's also a podcast host and an amazing mentor. Let's give a warm welcome to Uncle Dave. Welcome, Uncle Dave. So, Uncle Dave, can you tell the audience what is your personal story and your personal why?
Yeah, so I have a bunch of whys, but the real why is to just really level up everybody, help everybody, assist everybody through whatever challenges they're going through. That's really what I do. That's why there's a lot of whys to do that. I've always been one of those caring people, and because I've been one of those caring people, I always wanted to help others. I know in my life that the challenge has always been a little bit around that. We've all been gone through a lot of things, and how do you overcome some of the obstacles that have been in our way? you know
Okay. Okay, that's great. I know you call yourself a phoenix before. Can you elaborate why you call yourself that and what is a phoenix?
yeah, so phoenix is this mythical bird, or maybe not. It depends on your belief. So the bird, the story behind the phoenix is that it rises out of its ashes. And the great thing is, I used to think it was only Eastern philosophy that came out. And then once I started doing some research, it's actually in almost there's a bird like that, maybe not called the phoenix, but there's a bird that rises out of its ashes in every culture. So you go to and it's listed twice in the Bible. So again, I'm not a religious person. I'm not here to talk about religion, but depending on what you believe as the Bible being, it is listed in the Bible. It's listed in the story of Adam and Eve, as well as it's listed in the story of Noah's Ark. So it's traditional, and there are different ways to go. And what it goes through, if you think about your life, you've gone through a lot of challenges in life, and when that happens, you're like, I can't go through it anymore. You're in your ashes. You're in your lowest pieces, but somehow you've figured a way to get past it and rise again and fly and soar and being able to be reborn. And that's the part of it, is we don't always forget about the things that we do, and but we do really just keep rising and being able to. We'll use a lot of R words, so we'll find the resiliency. We'll have all the resources, and we keep soaring. So when you soar, you don't know where the horizon is.
Wow. So how did you discover your mission and your why? Like what is the process? Bring us the journey.
Yeah, so it really all came from me. It's like everything else when we talk with our clients and things like that, it's all about them. So in my case, it was all about me. The first time that I thought about being a phoenix was really tied to my divorce. I had young children. I had a daughter 3 and less than 1. And I was at this conference. It was a women's conference. There was 1,000 people in the room, and it was amazing speakers. But the one thing that really hit me was not the speakers; it was the poem by Maya Angelou. And if you've never heard of it, it's "Still I Rise," which does not talk about the phoenix. But the more I heard about that speech, the more I'm sitting there with all these women, and I'm like, I have 2 girls. I need to rise up from where I'm at, which wasn't feeling good, of course, and I needed to make sure that my girls have the opportunity to be in a room like this with 1,000 or more women talking about women's empowerment and being part of that. And that was my first Phoenix Day. It was, May 2006. So it was May 11th, 2006. And that was my first Phoenix Day. And I would celebrate that every day, because on that day was the day I decided that no matter what, I'm going to flip the switch and be able to look for things positively. And for the most part, I have. I mean, there's days that I don't, and you don't always have to be perfect, right? We're not talking about toxic positivity, that you have to be happy all the time and things like that.
So would you say that is the kind of lesson that make you realize you need to recalculate, or there's another lesson that make you really feel like you need to recalculate, like the wake up call?
Yeah, no. So we always have wake up calls in our life, and so the Phoenix moment, was my first Phoenix moment. But I've had other Phoenix moments. I mean, even 2 years ago, my life fell apart, and I tried to hurt myself. And I talk about this regularly because I think we all need to talk about the challenges we go through. You know, every day isn't going to be sunshine and unicorns. So we need to understand about the Phoenix moments in our life, but also make sure that we don't always go back to the bottom each time. And that's the really powerful piece, is to learn the right resources. And while we might be reborn or learn and keep growing, which is really important, those are the things we need to do, is make sure we don't always get kicked down all the way to the bottom again.
I agree. Like, there's no point of resetting the old bottomless. You just have to learn from the lesson and move on.
Yeah, it's like the old video games. You know, once you get to a certain level, you can't go back to the beginning, and which is good. And you shouldn't go back to the beginning, but you should always retool, recalibrate, and always rethink everything that's going through, because sometimes that's the powerful piece that we do, is when we, can reinvent ourselves and, repair ourselves as well.
Yeah, so I'm just curious, what is your ultimate legacy you want to leave behind with your mission?
Well, there's two legacies. So the legacy is definitely that we're able to talk about mental health a lot more. A lot more. I think that's a really important part. We all experience it, even if we don't want to admit it. If you yell at somebody, you're experiencing an issue of mental health. Just, you could be frustrated, and you're not dealing with the frustration right, and that's okay. We all yell, and I'm the last person in the world to tell you that it's always going to be perfect. So that's one of the legacies, is that if we can have that Uncle Dave moment where we say, or a Phoenix moment, where we take that moment to sit and figure out what's going on, let the process play out, as well as handle it a lot differently. If we improve ourselves and we re-engage in a lot of different ways, that's the really important part that I would always want to leave the legacy. And then the other legacy is, I do a lot of charity work. I always believe, have a helping hand, and those are the two legacies. So when you think about me, whenever that happens, I'd like you to think about, as a giving person, that I like to re-engage, and I know some people. That's the part of my thinking of what I'd love the legacy to be.
And how would you go about achieving that legacy?
I think I'm doing it. I think you have to put yourself out there. So part of my TEDx, when I did TEDx Farmingdale in 2020, I put myself out there, and by saying that I experienced a very serious, let's be really honest, a very serious mental health crisis at that time. And even though I knew the right resources, I wasn't using my right resources. And by talking about it and having conversations like this with amazing people like yourself, that's part of the legacy, because somebody who might be hearing this podcast and your show are going to say, hey, I was there also. I've done that. I mean, I'm lucky enough that there's a lot of people who listened to my TEDx, but I got contacted by about 9 people, which is a lot, who said, I'm going through that. I need that. And I was able to get them the right resources, or just talk to them and say, hey, I'm a person also, and I got through it, and I got through it because of X, Y, and Z. And so that's one of the things I'm doing to make sure, by having this conversation with as many people as I can, including when I go out and look for clients and speaking. I'm doing a lot of speaking. Part of it is about the mental health pieces. And for the charity, I'm always looking for, in the United States, 501c3s. I'm not sure what the classification is in Canada, and it's really just a government approved charities for tax purposes. So I always try to connect people, and I'm always doing charity stuff because that's what really feeds my passions and feeds my heart. I feel much better when I'm able to assist and move things more forward.
That's interesting. So I know you already answered part of this question, but how does it feel when you're the Phoenix?
It feels great, man. I didn't know. So one of the things that I shared with you is, being a Phoenix, we don't know how much of the weight we really carry. And I'm going to use this metaphor. Think about a bird who is flying as high as they could go, how much freedom that they might have. Now think of that same bird in a cage. You might not realize the cage because this is just the way everything has always been for you or for anybody around you. But once you can know you get out of the cage, you can't go back in the cage without knowing it's a cage. And that's really great. So for me, it's once I was able to go through a process and create my own process on how to heal myself through things that I've gone through and participated in things that I needed to participate through, it became a change. And that was the change I needed to really let me fly a lot better. I feel lighter because I'm not carrying around that mental, stuff. All the things that I said didn't bother me. Guess what? The things that did bother me, those are the things that hold you back. Sometimes we get those neck pains, we get stomach pains. Everybody holds, stress or upset levels of upset differently. And for me, it was in my neck. And by being in tune with myself and in tune with my body, I'm able to identify it a lot quicker.
Wow. And this question, I'm just curious, what does it mean by Cooperty?
Yeah, well, that's the process. So, as I'm going through this process for myself, going through it, I'm like, well, there's things that happened to me when I was a teenager, a young child that I didn't realize might have affected me. And so we all go through that process. Much like in our teens, we go through a process called puberty. We really didn't have a chance or a choice, and we go through it. And it changes us, right? Not only physically, but it also changes us mentally. We have a lot of growth spurts and all the other fun stuff. Now, puberty might not be as much fun, but it could be, and it could lead you to a lot of fun. It's a word I made up. There was never a word until I filed for the trademark application in the United States. So um, I did it, and we were able to figure it out. And what it really is a process to look at what's holding you back. What are the opportunities that are holding you back? What are you feeling that you're carrying? It's like the old saying, you can motivate 1,000 people, but you can't carry 3 on your back. Very true. If you're carrying all this extra weight that is doing no use for you, that, mental baggage that we're carrying, or the mental energy that we're utilizing, guess what? You're not working effectively. You're a technical person. So if you have 15 screens open, that's fine, but you really are taking away some of the power of your computer. And that's the same thing with our minds. That if we take away the power and heal within ourselves, we could be the change that the world really needs.
Wow, that's very deep. So why does assisting other make you so much joy, mean so much to you?
Well, just seeing somebody's face, and you can learn something. I've been lucky throughout my life to meet some really interesting people, and one of the people I've met was Frank Shankowitz, which his name might not ring a bell, but I guarantee you, once I mention the organization that he founded through his own traumas and challenges, Make a Wish. I'm sure we've all heard of the Make a Wish Foundation. So I've been lucky enough to meet and talk to him, and he recently passed away, but to consider him as a friend, or I've been a friend to him, and he was one of the mentors. And what he told me was, you can always do something, because that was a lesson he learned young in life. He had a really rough childhood, and by doing that, you're also helping 2 people. Think about all the times that you've done something nice for somebody, and you've gotten that ability to help them, even if they couldn't help you back. That's the good stuff. It makes you feel good, right? If we've all gone to a soup kitchen and you fed somebody, if you look them in the eye and just go, hi, you can see the little flicker of light that they might have, just that you're treating them as a regular person rather than just somebody who needs food. Guess what? We all need stuff. And what we need might not be, you know, perfect. And sometimes you don't know what anybody else's story is. That's the part of that mental process that I always talk about, the mental health piece. You never know what somebody else is going through until they share it with you. So we should all be kind. And guess what? If you're in the ability to help somebody, do that. It's going to help you also. It makes you feel good. It's putting it into the bank of karma. And guess what? You don't know how it's going to come back to you, but I really believe it does come back to you. I've been blessed in so many ways in meeting so many different people through my charity work and just seeing people be more cheerful. And that's one of those things that you were talking about earlier about legacy. That legacy is one of those things that I love. That I think about it. One more second is that book by Mitch Albom, The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. And about that book, if you haven't read it, it's a great book. It's a storybook. You don't know who those 5 people when you go to heaven, if there's a heaven, right? But what you do is think about all that all the time. I think about that all the time. Who are the people that I might have helped along the way that I didn't realize that if I just said to you, like you, Vivian, hey, you look great, and you might have just needed that for that day, and you might be one of those people. You don't know what anybody needs because not everybody tells you everything. So if you think about the 5 people that when you go to heaven, think about that. And when you're helping out somebody, and guess what? You never know when those people will stand up for you and welcome you in the way that you need welcome.
Wow, that's fantastic. I will really look up that note. So if you are to give us free tips for our audience, what would that be? Free tips, advice they can give us right now.
Yeah, sure. So the one thing is slow down your brain to speed up your reactions. Now, I know that sounds really weird, but there's a lot of ways because our brains are reptilian, right? If this is all the science stuff that we learned in high school, it's that fight or flight response. But if we have a lot of layers of fight or flight response, the brain doesn't necessarily remember it all. It sums it all up. So if you can heal some of those other responses, that's going to make the difference by healing some of those responses that might have been less good or how you felt it and how it triggers you. You can heal those. That's one way to really reset yourself. Another thing that I would say to do is always look at people giving you advice or anything like that or talking to you. They're always looking at it for your highest good. Now, not everybody is out there that's going to look out for your highest good. But what you do is when you talk to them is you understand really that if they're working in my highest good, you're going to put out that energy of they're working for my highest good versus somebody who's like, oh, he's out to get me. And lastly, what I would do is use your body, find your body in the mind, body, soul piece and find what integrates you. And like on my podcast where I say peace, love, and bring a bat, find out what your non-negotiables are. Find out what your boundaries are and keep those. That doesn't mean that nobody should walk over you, but they should also know where your boundaries are and why you do that. And that's bringing you a lot of peace and love as well.
Wow. Uncle Dave, it has been great to have you on our podcast show. So how can people reach you if they want to?
Yeah, so the easiest way to reach me is social media. And I keep my name, David Chametzky. So that's a little scary sounds for a lot of people. So I'll spell it out for your people. David is easy. Chametzky is CHAMETZKY. So you can find me on social media. My website is davidchametzky.com. I have t-shirts. I have a whole bunch of really good things that really I think everybody should talk about and of course, my podcast, Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat. Guess what? It's all brings on guests that have inspiring messages and ways to look at things to bring you peace and love, because that's what it's really all about. Or email me on onthepathy@gmail.com.
Wow, thank you, Uncle Dave. Again, this is the last word you want to say to our audience before we say bye to our audience.
Yeah. So what I would say to you is exactly how I end most of my podcasts. Find peace and love in your life because that's the most important parts, because that's going to really ground you and do that. But if you have to bring a bat, this is not about violence or anything like that. But make sure when you swing that bat, find your sweet spot, find those boundaries, find those non-negotiables and hit it out of the park. And I wish you all to hit a grand slam.
Once again, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Guys and girls, if you enjoyed this episode, stay tuned for more episodes sending your way. Bye for now.